We're going to just go over a couple review problems, okay, for your quiz. There's a couple things wording-wise I haven't really talked to you yet. I just didn't want to like bombard you with so much information and confuse you. So now you feel like hopefully you have a little bit better handle on domain, range, and function. I can talk to you about a couple more ways that we can say things. And then we're just going to do the quiz, okay? The quiz is 10 questions, multiple choice, as always, and then you're done. You get 2 chances if you want your 2 chances. Oh, by the way, so this starts a new unit, right? So like the old unit with the inequalities and all that stuff, that quiz score average has already been put into Skyward. All right, so that's in there already. Okay. And then after that, if you finish early, because I don't know how long 10 questions is going to take you, but take your time, okay? But after that, if you finish early, find something to do, maybe get caught up in other classes, or just find something to do that does not involve other people because they might still be working, and definitely no phones, okay? All right, so let's do this. Let's go over a couple things, okay? So today is a quiz day. So what's the domain? We know the domain. Hopefully you know the domain. Can someone raise their hand and tell us what letter does domain always stand for? Kip. The X. So domain is X. So really they're saying, what are my X's? So I have a mapping diagram. We haven't seen one of these in a while, but we did see it last year. Can anyone just look at this maybe and take an educated guess if you don't know? What are the numbers of the domain? I'm not presenting, am I? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not presenting again. Thank you for telling me. I'm not gonna lie. This is my second time this class period, and this is the only class period that I've forgotten to present. It's not because I hate you guys, okay? I promise. I love you dearly. It's just, you're my first class of the morning, and maybe my coffee hasn't kicked in yet. So please tell me every single time I make a mistake, and you can yell at me because I deserve it, okay? All right, so the question was, and this is the first question, what was the domain? We said domain was X. So can someone raise their hand if they think they know what numbers are the domain here? What do we think? Grant?
6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, so domains are X's, right? And when we have a mapping diagram, the first bubble is always the X, the second bubble is always the Y. So you can really just ignore that stuff. So do you see how there's an arrow coming out of every single number? So you can say then that all of these are going to be the domain. So my domain would be 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I did write right here, write it in set notation. So normally we write our domain like this. They're just separate numbers, not inequalities, because there's no like connected dots, okay? They're just separate numbers. But ladies and gentlemen, set notation looks different. It's really not that difficult. It's just a different way to write something, okay? So here's how I write it. A set notation looks like this. Domain is X, so I write X first, and then I draw a line, and then I would say in set notation, X equals 6, 7, 8, and 9. So this is how I normally write domain, but this is something special. It's called writing it in set notation. You're going to see that in your quiz, but do you see how it's basically the same thing? You just have a couple added X's here because domain is X, but that's basically it. Okay, so that's what set notation looks like. So let's try that one more time here and write it in set notation. So first of all, you don't have to tell it to me in set notation, but does anyone know, first of all, range? Can you raise your hand? What letter is the range? Luis? Okay, so we have to memorize range is Y. So can someone different raise their hand and tell us what numbers should I write for range? Tessa?
0, 1, 3, 5, 3.
So remember, range is Y, and my second numbers are always the Y. So I can ignore all the X's. So she's right. I have 0, 1, 3, 5. Oh, and 3 again. I don't need to write 3 again. So I just write it once. So who cares that I actually have 5 numbers here, but I'm only listing off 4? That's because one of them was repeated. And just make sure they're written in numerical order from smallest to largest, which it is. Okay, so this is normal writing range. But if I wanted to write it in set notation, does anyone think they can take a stab at it knowing how I wrote this? Luke, what do you think?
You just put, where you got parentheses, and then you put Y, and then you put like the line, and then Y equals 0, 1, 3, 5.
Perfect. So this is what you would call set notation. Okay, again, it's pretty much exactly the same. You just have you're just being extra sure that range is Y. So that's what you have here. Okay. Another thing you'll see may be different on your Edgenuity quiz, and we're showing this to you because there's just so many different ways you can write the same thing, is this. Okay, so John is watering the plant his mom gave him. Oh, what a good son. You're watering the present that your mommy gave you. All right, the table shows the height in inches of his plant, Y, as a function of the time in days, X. What is the range? Okay, so hopefully we can just get that. Does anyone think they know? What would my range look like here? Yeah?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, so ranges are Y's. We know that, right? And so when I have a table, the Y is always the bottom row. So my range would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so hopefully that's obvious to you now. But I can write this in another way. Okay, can't I also say that this problem, I can write it as all real numbers such that, can't see it. Yes, Chip?
I don't know why I was bringing
Okay, so all real numbers such that Y is greater, or maybe I can not write it like that. I'll write it like this. Y is greater than or equal to 4. Okay, so you might see it written this way. So I know the range is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for this, right? But technically, the plant's going to keep on growing after what is X? 2 inches? No, X is days. Sorry, after 2 days. I mean, hopefully you're not going to kill your plant after 2 days, right? Hopefully your plant will be alive for like 100 days or 1,000,000 days or whatever. So technically, your plant doesn't stop growing after 8 inches, right? It's going to grow more than that. So if it's going to grow more than that, because this is a real life problem, technically, isn't it just Y is greater than or equal to 4? Now it's not 0 because your mom didn't give you the plant as a seed of 0, but your mom gave it to you starting at 4. Okay. So since you started at 4, then you go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So your range is anything bigger than 4. So all real numbers greater than or equal to 4. Does that kind of make sense? How in a real life problem, you might have to apply it in a different way. So it's any number in the world, as long as it's bigger than 4, because it started at 4. Are there any questions on that one? Okay, again, I'm just kind of trying to show you the different ways that you can see something. It's like there's 3 different ways to solve a problem, right? There's also 3 different ways that you can answer a problem. So I just want you to see everything. Okay, let's go back to the basics. Let's find the domain and range here. So first of all, what do we think? Is my answer going to be like numbers, something, comma, something, comma, something, or is it going to have inequalities? Inequalities. Why? Because they're connected, right? It's only separate numbers if I have dot, 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 but I have connected lines. So this is how I set up my problem, my answer then. So domain is X, range is Y. It looks like I have no arrows, so I'm actually going to make a box. Okay, someone that has not spoken yet today, what do we think? My domain, we said domain is X. So how far does my picture go to this side, to the other side? Does anyone think they know? Vaughn, what do you think? Sorry, -1 to what? Very close. I think you're looking at 2 different lines though. So X's is right here. So it does start from the -1. Yeah, so it goes from -1 to +3. That's my domain. Okay, my range. We said ranges are Y's. Here's the Y-axis. Someone different. You think you know this one? Grayson?
-4 to 8.
So close. You're so close. You made the same mistake that I just did actually right now. So you know this was 8 because it says the number 8. But we just made a really, really silly mistake, Jack.
Well, it's -8 to 8.
Do you see how it's actually -8? Like, how can this be 4 boxes but 8, but then this be 4 boxes and be -4? So I totally saw that as -4 as well. But technically, it looks like we're counting by twos here, 2, 4, 6, 8. So on the bottom, -2, -4, -6, -8. So I know I totally missed it until literally Grayson said it, and I was like, wait, okay, yeah, okay, all right. And then this one's super complicated. So first of all, for my domain and range, inequalities or a list of numbers?
Well, the lines are connected.
The lines are connected though. I just have some open circles. So as long as I see some lines being connected, it's still going to be an inequality. Okay. So my domain, I don't have arrows, so I can still draw a box. Okay. I'm going to work through this one with you. So it looks like from my X's, doesn't it start from 1 and then end at 6? Does that make sense so far? Starts at 1, ends at 6. But there's a couple open things here. The open thing means that it doesn't include the 2 because it's open, and it also doesn't include the 4 because it's open. So technically, my X's, it goes from 1 and it touched 1 because it's a closed circle, so I have a line underneath, but it doesn't touch the 2. So do you see how I don't have a line underneath for the 2 because it didn't touch the 2? Okay, then my X's went from 2 all the way to 4, but do you see how it doesn't touch the 2 and it doesn't touch the 4? So that's why I don't have the lines under there. And then finally, it went from 4 all the way to 6. So with my inequalities, which one should have the line under it? The one next to 6. Because look, right, do you see how there's a filled in circle with 6? So it does touch it, so I have a line here, but it didn't touch the 4, so I don't have a line here. So I actually have to write like 3 different segments here because there were 3 different segments and it didn't touch those 2. So I have to somehow mark it so that it doesn't touch that. Okay, my range, same thing then. I'm going to have 3 different answers because it goes up and then up and then up, but it doesn't touch 2 of them. So my first one for my range, what's the first number that I should write? Like the lowest it goes? 1. So it goes 1. Does it touch the 1?
Yeah.
Yes, so I have a line underneath. And then it goes up to the, what number? 3, but does it touch the 3? No, so there's no line here. Okay, then it starts back up from the 3, it doesn't touch, and it goes up to the what? 5, which is right here. Does it touch? No, so there's also no line. And then finally it goes from the 5, doesn't touch, to the 6. Does it touch? Yes. Okay, oh my gosh, that was a lot. But sometimes things get complicated, and you guys are in pre-AP. Right? If you weren't in pre-AP, we would stick with this and we wouldn't do anything else on this paper, all the other words. But since you are in pre-AP, I know you want to be challenged. So there, boom, challenged. Mind exploded. Okay. Are there any final questions? Yes.
Can we listen to music when we're done?
If you have headphones and if your phone is still in your backpack, if it's corded, like then just keep your phone in your backpack. But it'll just be connected to your ears. Okay. All right. So